So Nathan, we had an interesting chat the other day, so there's lots to say. Don't know quite where to start. Do you want to start maybe about your background and how you got into commercials and what approach you took coming into it?
Yep. I can't remember. No, maybe it's easier.
We could.
Tell me if you can't hear me.
We could project.
Yes. I went to university, I studied physics. I was doing improvised theatre and stuff like that as well, improvised comedy. National theatre sports champion.
Woo!
So I was doing that sort of stuff, and then we were doing physics, and then I was really into physics. I thought I was going to find the answers to the universe, and I'm like, it's actually just getting more and more kind of mathsy, and I'm like, I need to do film. So I went to broadcasting school in Christchurch. I was doing film papers at Otago as well, and then I went to work for Silver Screen, which was a big commercials production house in the 90s and 2000s until it blew up in grand style. And I was a visual effects guy, so I did visual effects for a long time, well, for a couple of years. 3D, that was where the physics background came in handy and the film stuff as well. But we were kind of a unique little team. Me and John Baxter went round for Silver Screen, working with all the different directors at Silver Screen doing their effects when it was all a bit more of a cowboy operation. So we had flames and road cases and things. And we were sort of rock and roll. I think one time I worked a 36-hour day, and it was all just kind of like, it was mad. We were doing great fun stuff, but it was a little crazy. So, but then I tried to quit, and they made me, and they're like, no, you can't quit, you have to be the boss. And I was like 23 or 24, I'm like, I can't do that. And then they're like, you should, and I'm like, okay, what have you, and that worked out. And so then I ran the post-production company for a while. And we turned it into a company called October, which did sort of designy stuff, and it was a pretty good effects house in its day. We did some shots for Lord of the Rings, and we won a lot of awards and stuff. It was quite a creative place. And then from that, lots of commercials were coming in without a director involved. So I sort of jumped on those, and then I made the transition into directing.
And so did your search for the meaning of life did you get that through film rather than
I think
science studies?
I think so. I mean, well, that was my thing with science, is it there are answers there, like quantum physics and stuff is all very interesting, about uncertainty, and what I felt is that as a human being, it's in the arts and stuff that you really find out about how a human being operates in the world. So, I think. Well, I felt the film, that kind of thing, and testing yourself in that world, is helping me find meaning in the long run.
Now, one thing I think is really interesting about how you do commercials is the fact that you don't have a company that you're signed to in New Zealand. You've got international rep, but you and Clarice have Ruskin and you work sort of independently. Yeah. So how did that come about, and like how did you get to the point that you can sort of, you and your partner can kind of rock around doing cool ads together?
It was kind of luck a little bit. I mean, Clarice was a talented producer before I met her. She was working with Gason. And I think, because I had run the company with October and stuff, I had that kind of experience running a company. I had studied accounting and stuff at high school, so I had a little bit of that kind of knowledge. So I felt weirdly confident to kind of like start our own company. And it was also just a kind of a process of, because I was very loyal to Silver Screen, but then it blew up, so that just could have got rid of that. And then a lot of the other big companies around town were people who had been colleagues from Silver Screen. So that's it. And it was like, do I have to go and work for the guys who I kind of feel like a little kind of competitive with? And so it just made sense to, me and Julie also in the EP from Silver Screen started our own thing for a wee while. And then because Clarice and I were working, we got together, and then it was sort of a case, we were always in different countries or often different places, so it just made sense for us to work together sometimes. And it's really great having your own company as well. You have that responsibility for what's going on. It's a bit stressful sometimes when you're doing something big and you're a few $100,000 over budget. You're like, yeah. it adds a little bit of pressure, but I think it's fun. Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your sort of approach, your general DAO approach to
My DAO
filmmaking and being on set and shooting, and and how you integrate that into sort of a place that is quite precise, but it's kind of gives you the, I guess, a mantra to do it by.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my thinking about filmmaking about how my techniques have evolved over time. I'm quite into Taoism. Have you guys read the Tao Te Ching? There's kind of, there's this thing called Wu Wei, which is like doing without doing, which sounds like a paradox. It doesn't mean like be lazy. It's sort of like how to find ways to kind of get in vibe with the world. So just to go back a step, I think for me, when I started out as a filmmaker, I couldn't get what I wanted. So like my early experiences, my first shoot, I remember being on the set and it just turning out in a very strange way, and I actually had a panic attack where we were actually 3 hours in and the producer's like yelling at me because the makeup people hadn't got all the people on set yet. Like, we're 3 hours over time and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm the worst director ever. And you know, you just don't have, because you haven't been through the process enough times, you don't have the skills to get it done. And I remember even later on the day, because it got so stressful that it was the DOP, we got to a point and I didn't know what to do with the shots, and the DOP just luckily stepped in and said, why don't we shoot this way and shoot that way? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. And it was good, but it kind of turned out, and there was interesting things about it, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. And then so the next stage was sort of getting to the point where I could get what I wanted, which was like, you know, I could do the boards and I could go and be very specific about things and sort of achieve the shots that I wanted. But then it all just felt a bit like dead, and there wasn't a kind of it was so specific, and then sometimes you'd struggle for ages to get exactly what you originally intended, and it didn't seem to be the best use of time. So then the next phase of my development, and you know, this is me just talking about me, it's probably all different for you guys, but was, well, how do you get more than what you want? How do you kind of harness those powers around you within a scene to make something greater than what you could do yourself? And so this is this doing without doing. Like, how do you make something bigger than what you can do? You have to inspire all those people around you. You have to kind of collaborate with nature. You have to have an openness to kind of to what's going on, so that you're sort of riding this thing rather than being very specific about what it is. So the Wu Wei thing, going back to that, is like the easy example is like Kung Fu. You know, like if someone's, no, I think is it judo? So somebody's attacking you, and instead of you attacking them and just being really tougher than them, you use their energy to defeat themselves. You know what I mean? Mm. So they attack, you sort of, they go, oh, and you like go, oh, and they go, ah, because they've like overbalanced, or you just give them that little push at that point when they're sort of moving past you. So this idea of doing without doing, it's not to do things, it's just to get into the kind of natural way of things, so that everything is working with you. So that is about inspiring your crew. It's about planning meticulously, but then being open to what happens on set, open to what your actors are doing and feeling on the day, about being open to you know, even your own intuitive spirit and stuff, rather than all the things you planned, feeling how that day is going. And so then I have this other idea, which is kind of about riding the dragon. So ride the dragon is like, and these are just, it sounds stupid, I know, but it's like just stupid shit I say to myself. Ride the dragon is like about risk and anxiety. Because when you're doing something and you don't have a whole great deal of control over it, you know, you've got a big crew, the bigger the things you do, the less control you have. You've got a massive crew, you've got actors doing things, you've got nature involved because you're at a castle and there's a storm coming in. Riding the dragon is about taking the risks that let you involve in those things, instead of just going, oh no, I want to do a shot this big because then I won't have any risk from anything. So it's about going, okay, I'm accepting the fact that I only have a limited amount of control over this. But if I'm good with my wu wei, I can kind of sort it out. And it's about the anxiety. The anxiety is just that risk of doing that thing. You know, it's about having faith in the process and faith in the people who are working with you and stuff like that. And a certain humility that it's not just you who's doing the shot or you who's doing the scene. It's all these people who are coming together. And so you don't have to know all the answers to everything. You kind of have to just try and get into the flow of it.
You were talking about when we were chatting about creating the right environment so that happens.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, is that like the trust of the crew and things, and then also how does that fit in with an ad where you've also got the agency and client on the other side of it, because you're sort of in the middle and there's the crew there and then there's the agency and client over here?
Yeah. Well, I think a big principle on set is creative hierarchy. So you're sort of vibing with your crew and stuff, but I think early on when I was working with agencies and stuff, I would be quite, I would sort of fight back and I'd really want to get my sort of vision through. But I came to realize that wasn't always the most productive thing. And I personally feel that you kind of have to respect the writers. It's their thing, it's their something that's come from them that you're trying to communicate. So with an advertising agency, say, I think there's a tendency to want to go, oh no, you're idiots and you just don't know what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. But I've began to find that pushing back in that way actually just caused them sort of to dig in more. They just got a bit more kind of, because they would feel like you were sort of stealing their idea and sort of taking it away from them. So you had to, I think you have to accept that you are that place in the hierarchy, that is their idea and you have to make it good. And that, when I say that, it's not to say that you shouldn't defend your ideas. If you think you've got something that's that is working and you've figured it out and this is a part of the treatment that you presented to them, and they want to do something different, you have to really present it as honestly and truthfully as you can. And you don't stop until you really just make sure that they can understand what you're saying, but you don't force it on them. Because you have to accept that it's their position in the thing to make that call at the end of the day. And that the flip side of that is when you're working with your crew and stuff, because you want the same thing. You want them to give you as much as they can. You want to really have sort of serious conversations with your crew and for them to put their ideas forward. You don't want them to just take, I'm always terrified actually that they're just going to take what I said and go and do that, rather than go, oh well, this is the concept and this is what I'm feeling and what do you think? What getting, and it's about harnessing the energy of all the people involved.
More collaborative.
Yeah. But the other note I have is just about, don't let people bully you. Because I've had experiences with that where like a DOP or somebody kind of goes, oh no, this is the way I'm doing it and I'm the DOP. I've had it on a TV shoot one time where they're like, well, I'm the DOP and it's my job to make it look good, so I'm going to do this shot. And that's not true. A director is the boss of the set, in the way I understand it. So they have to respect that, And in the same way that you have to respect the creatives who are above you, they have brought you this idea. And yeah, my thing with that is just not to let people bully you, because I've heard stories of, you know, and it's happened to me as well, but I've heard stories particularly of girls and stuff being bullied by DOPs or being bullied by ADs. And I think you just have to get rid of those people. You know, you have to have people who respect your position in it. Otherwise it just becomes toxic to your creativity, as well as, because if you're not actually making the decisions, then how are you testing yourself? It doesn't mean your decisions will be right every time. Often I've made decisions and I'm like, oh yeah, Ginny was right, or but that's the process you have to go through, and you have to respect that you have to go through that process, and they have to respect that too. Likewise, upwards, you have to kind of respect their thing. And I've found when you're like that with the agency and stuff, they do tend to be more. They're more accepting, because they're like, oh, they relax. They're like, he's not trying to steal this. He's not trying to take this away from us. And he is, and then they get a little bit anxious actually. They're like, oh, well, now he wants us to decide. Maybe you should just decide. You know, they often sort of then push it back to you. Instead of suddenly feeling defensive, I think they're a lot more trusting of you. If you say, well, you know, guys, it's your call. I'm here to make what you guys want to make, great. And you know, I think that works a lot better, because in the past, for me, it's been certainly people, they dig their toes in if you sort of push back too much.
Shall we watch something?
Should we watch something? What do we want to watch? Should we do Honda? Good to see you, Wayne. Oh. Hold on. It looks good from this side.
Wolf, bruh. I said wolf. The all-new Honda HR-V. The 5-door compact SUV for wherever you dream of going.
Cool.
Sorry. It's really old here. That wasn't meant to be in it.
That was great. Where did you shoot that?
That shot in, where is it? Thames.
Oh, cool.
And what's the road down by the Firth of Thames? You know, that nice flat bit with all the grasses.
Do you want to talk a bit about the production of it, and also maybe how you take it from the agency script and develop it, if that's a good one to talk about?
Sure. So that one came in, it was a pretty good idea. It was basically lucid dreaming. What was in it and what wasn't? You know, I think a lot of the times when you're working on a script, I'm a big believer in development, you know, in terms of the script. In that development, both in the treatment and then in the development phase of working to make it better all the time. You know, it doesn't matter how much you sort of polish it craft-wise, the story and the characters and stuff are the things that sell it through. I have to remember what they didn't have in there. They didn't have, I think they had him starting, you know, and he was in a dream. Basically, it was the premise. It was kind of like he's in a dream, he gets in the car, and then he wakes up at the end, and then they had all this other different stuff in the middle.
And it's really a process, particularly with those ones, because it's quite a creative idea already. Some ideas aren't as creative as that. Of going, well, okay, well, how do we make this really clear? One thing I was worried about with that was it's a pretty abstract idea, the lucid dreaming thing. And I think with ads, you really have to play your sort of more populist hand. You know, you have to play more pop music than kind of concerto. So it's like, okay, well, how do I make sure that they understand that dreaming bit? So I weighted up the whole front bit and put in those bits with the hair moving, where he has this whole realization and stuff. And then we had the little lucid dreaming book. We did the egg thing. And these are all things we were just continuing to develop through the treatment phase, and we actually had quite a long run-in on that one. It was probably because I was away on another job, so we were talking on the phone every couple of weeks, or every week or something like that, for maybe a month. And they were going away and writing more stuff, and we were writing more stuff, and then they were pretty trusting on that one actually. There wasn't too much tension. But I guess what is surprising to some people was the amount that we do change the script. You know, like, I think that water scene, the going through the portal wasn't in there. I think the talking dog was in there, but, you know, the car coming together and all that stuff wasn't in there. It was like, how do we get a faster transition into the car, because we had him getting into the car and all that kind of stuff, and that was taking a bit long and sort of lost its dreamlike quality. And it's all about how you get all the little bits to kind of integrate in a kind of elegant way. Because I guess with commercials there is always a question about, how do we fit it in 60 seconds? And how do we get as many nice ideas, not as many nice ideas, but how do you make it elegantly so that the bits all fit together in a nice way? And then the big style reference there was, have you guys seen, what's his name?
Gondry.
What?
Gondry.
No, it's not Gondry. It's a 60s film called...
Jacques Tati's films, no?
No. Oh God, how come I forgot?
It's a good guessing game.
Yeah. Who can guess the reference? Oh. Anyway, it's like a... it's an amazing sci-fi, like a fantasy film. No, it's kind of like a dream film from Jean Cocteau. You must know this, Bob.
I think it was Golden Coast, but it's not.
No. Anyway, there's these dream cops. Orpheus. Yeah. I think that's one. It's Orpheus, and he's. Yeah. And he and they have those cops and stuff in there who are the kind of the dream police. I think he dies and he goes through into the other world, but it's shot in the 60 ways, and there's so many great techniques in there. So I kind of borrowed the characters from that actually. There's a little bit of a film reference. Yeah, Orpheus. 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 Yeah, and they go in the cars and they listen to radios. And there's amazing shots where he's putting his hand through a mirror, and they show the mirror, and then they cut to like a pool of water, and you know they've cut and they put the hand through. You should check it out because it's all like Gondry in the 60s kind of thing. It's really amazing.
Awesome.
So that was a big reference for the design of the characters. Jean Cocteau, I think it was, and. You know, and you pull together all your kind of thoughts on different film history and stuff that you can pull in. Yeah, I think that was mainly how it was about. There's not like there wasn't like a huge change because it was kind of a cool idea coming in.
Yeah,
like lucid
cool
dreaming.
idea.
You don't see that many like scripts which are kind of like, we want to do a thing on lucid dreaming. You're like, oh yeah, that'd be great.
Can I ask, do you board everything that you shoot? What's your process?
Yeah, I board, not when I'm doing TV drama and stuff, but with this stuff, I'll board it. It doesn't mean I won't change on the day, and I'm always open to what's happening and we sort of adjust, but we always kind of work the board. It's pretty loose, the boarding. It depends. Yeah. I like to draw my own storyboards just as a kind of a way, and then someone else draws them, and I always think they draw them crappy because they change the sizes and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of tension there with the storyboarding process. But then sometimes they come up with some really great ideas as well as storyboard artists.
And so how do you find that process with the agency? Because obviously things with client and agency need to be quite locked down, but your process is still quite open and fluid and kind of developing. So how do you find the filmmaking politics?
Yeah, for me, I always just kind of, I seem to have this ability to kind of keep them in a sort of a sense of limbo, like, oh, I don't know, we'll see how it goes, you know, like, yeah, we'll definitely get that shot, the one that you need, and then, but it could, I don't know, there's this other thing happening and that could work out. And they're kind of like, oh, if they trust you, it's helpful. And sometimes it makes them a bit nervous, but you kind of have to just reassure them and dress nice, and then they like it. And they're like, yeah, it's going to be totally... And I always try and talk about, like, the clients, you know, what he's trying to get out of it. Yeah, because we're going to get this great shot of this car, and it's going to be car, and so that they feel like, oh, you understand. You know, people just want to be listened to. Really, and the creatives are like, you know, that idea, and you're like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's explaining much, but listening to people and just letting them feel like they're being listened to in the process, and then they back off. They kind of like go, oh yeah, he kind of gets it, and then they'll come in and have an idea, and you're like, oh yeah, let's give it a try. You have to be careful. Like, I think sometimes there's a tendency with ads, you're like, oh, well, I think we should do it this way, and they're like, yeah, but we think maybe we should do it that way, and then you're like, well, why don't we just shoot it both ways, they'll say. And you go, well, there's only a certain amount of time in a day, and we can rush through the shots, but then they won't be as good. We'll sacrifice the quality a bit. So I always try and push people, go, let's make a decision, you know. If it's in the same setup, you know, if it's exactly the same and you're there and you can just shoot another take, then get the alternate. But if it's talking about another setup, you know, that's another 45 minutes, that's a good chunk of a day. Then I go, well, I think we should make a decision. Let's just, you know, it's hard, but we have to decide. And if they want to go their way, then it's my job just to try and make that work, you know.
Should we watch another one?
Okay.
It's great to kind of get an idea of the kind of range of stuff you do for everyone.
Yeah. That was a comedy. That was for Australia. This one is for England.
Royal London have been around for ages.
Sorry. And this one's kind of like a meta ad. The whole idea is it's like a guy doing a piece to camera. You know, it's meant to be like one of those bad insurance ads where people are like, hi, I'm, you know, some famous guy who you don't like. Like Richard Long kind of thing. Not, you know, he's cool. But...
Royal London have been around for ages, so hold dear those classic values of the past. Loyalty, care, helping people hide their cheese from the Vikings.
Where is cheese?
I don't know what cheese is. Take screaming Paulina. She got a pension tailored to suit her thriving internet venture. Cheers. Take a sniff of this. Amazing. Oh, Robbie. And Flemmy Stew has a wonderfully straightforward pension. Just maybe not the time to enjoy it.
Thanks for coming, no, you were real busy.
Little Pete, retiring with the best pension for his short working life. Even if you live nowadays, Royal London will treat you with the values of the past. Ask your financial advisor about them, or the internet.
So that one was kind of scary actually, because we didn't know. I would turn up on set and I didn't have a script. There was not a script. We didn't know what they were going to say. I'd sort of just talk them into this idea that we're going to improv and stuff. And I had ideas of what we would say, and we'd have kind of lists of gags. Yeah. So that was a little bit scary. No, we knew the bits, like the bit at the start where he's like, basically he'd say something like, you know, something from Royal London, blah, blah, blah. And then the bits that are in between were all kind of improvised, which was really fun, but kind of terrifying. And it was just one of those weird things where the client was brilliant. She was like, yeah, just, she loved Monty Python and all this kind of stuff. And she was on set, and it was one of those things where it's like,
I mean, one thing I always encourage is to get the highest people up you can get, you know, clients and stuff like that. And it's a great thing about working in New Zealand is often you do get the top guys on set, because then they're just like, if it's a functionary, if it's one of their assistants and stuff like that, they're always like, oh, I don't know, they could freak out, you know, because it's a little bit freaky. But she was there, and she was like, she's a big wig, and she got fired the next year. But she didn't give. She was so rich. This lady, the lady who was the client, was so rich. She just didn't care, which was brilliant. And but it did really well for them. I don't think she got fired because of that. It was probably the other ad I did for them. She got fired for it. No, but she was just like, you know, she was like, that was brilliant, that's great, right. And then everyone's like, oh, great, and then you just move on, you have that energy, and it's like that, you create that vibe on set where everyone's just kind of really excited about something. I mean, we still plan it really well, and basically with that kind of stuff, we do, you know, you can see there's a lot of production design and stuff in there, but then the what was in the scene and how that was going to work was, he's not eating the rat in that one, is he? No, that was the other one.
What you got fired?
Yeah, we got into a little bit of trouble for that. Actually, people complain about him riding a donkey as well. Apparently, you shouldn't be that big if you're riding a donkey. It's tips. Yeah, with that stuff, you know, who's the guy? The director, Judd Apatow. He does a lot of improv stuff, and basically you try and get 2 cameras on something, and then you just go, and then we just have a bunch of ideas, and we would just go, you know, throw them a line and see what happens. And if you have funny people, it can work pretty well. So say with the guy sniffing the turnips and stuff like that, I was like, okay, it's I don't know what I'd say. I'd say some pretty dirty stuff sometimes. And he'd just sort of roll with it, and we would just shot for 5 minutes that way, and we'd just wait until we got something interesting. And then cutting it together was a bit weird. But then the other thing with that was casting. Like that guy who's on the horse at the start, the cheese guy, he's nuts. He was like, he came in with that wig on. He's bald. He's bald, and he's totally mental. And that character, I was just like, he couldn't speak any English, which made it brilliant, you know, because what does he say? He says, yeah, geez, that's all he could say. And it was kind of one of those things like, oh man, it's probably a really bad idea, but I should cast this guy. Because he's so genius. And we just couldn't, we were sitting there, and he was trying to be totally serious, like with his scene, and he actually came in with a whip on and stuff. And he was totally that guy. And then you were like, it's a really bad idea, he's a maniac. And he said, yeah, I can totally ride a horse. He couldn't really ride a horse. The horsemen guys were like, all the Prague guys were like, we're so embarrassed, he's an idiot. And I'm like, no, he's a genius. But it's that thing, riding the dragon, of like going, okay, it's a stupid idea, but it's probably going to make it better, you know. So you take that risk, and you just sometimes have to, you know, sail a little close to the wind to get that kind of great moment. And then the kids were really great. But they were nuts as well. They were just like going, ah! You know, they were running around, and we were trying to stop them from running about and doing stuff, but then we didn't want to stop them because you wanted to get that natural kind of thing. Yeah. And Gethin was really funny as well. Actually, when I cast Gethin, I saw who's the main guy. I saw his performance, and I'm like, that guy's either an idiot or he's a genius. And it turned out he was a genius. Because he kind of, he'd done a lot of clowning and stuff, so he had that physical comedy thing, but it just seemed like he really was an idiot. You know, some people have that talent. It's actually a talent I've discovered, that like, that type of comedy, which I really like, he was able just to pull it off, and he was able to come out of it and be a very serious person, but he was able to go into that clowning kind of mode. Yeah. Is that kind of explained? Yeah,
no, that's great. So you were talking about when we talked about you finding your filmmaking voice coming up through ads.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one because you didn't come up through short films or music videos. You kind of came in from post.
Yeah.
So do you want to just talk a bit about that, about how your process works in terms of finding your own voice in that sense, and then also what your sort of future plots and plans maybe.
Yeah, I mean, my theory on voice is that you kind of develop it naturally. Like, I always think it's dangerous to kind of have, I've seen directors who have kind of like a cookie cutter style, you know, that they just put it on that style on everything. I think it's really nice, and there's a Taoist idea of like the uncarved rock. So, you know, like the Western idea is you go, oh, look, I'm going to make, you know, I'm going to make Michelangelo. I want to go find a great, David. I'm going to make David. I need a great piece of rock so I can do that. Whereas you know, an Eastern artist will go, I don't know, it's looking a little bit like a deer. And he'll just start scraping it away. And as he does, it'll reveal new things about itself. And I'm the same way. I think that with when you look at a script, you go, oh, what is this? It could be, and you scrape a little bit away, and you try a bit there, and you stick a bit on, and you try and ask the thing what it's trying to become itself. And that doesn't sound like that it would give you a voice, but I think, I don't know. I mean, people look at my stuff and say there is some sort of similarity through it. I don't know, do you think that?
Yeah, I think that there's a similarity, and it probably comes from that process that you do, so you're applying that process.
You kind of, I was just wondering if I had a voice there. Otherwise I wouldn't be really qualified to talk on it. But yeah, I think that process of applying yourself and trusting your instinct, and also just creating the universe of crew and stuff and that around you and the people you collaborate with, it just sort of emerges, this thing. And there's two things I try and do is just approach a thing and ask it what it wants to be rather than me telling it what to be. And the other thing is when I'm on set, I always just try and when I'm watching the screen, I always try and just go, pretend like you're at home watching the television instead of on a big set with lots of people all around you. And just let your jaw go a little slack and just you've had a long day and you're just and then you watch it and you try and get into the vibe of not being a filmmaker, but just being a loser at home, Me being a loser, not everyone else, but is monged out on the couch and seeing it. And then you kind of, it's just about what you like and stuff like that. And what you find is funny. And I think if you can get in touch with it, because lots of things that are really popular for a lot of people. And I guess that was the other thing I said to you the other day is about, I think it's really important when you're figuring out the kind of stuff you want to do with something, is you kind of have to figure, with ads particularly, you have to figure out the poppy side of yourself. I like Tarkovsky and I like, Jean Cocteau and all that kind of, old arty stuff. But with ads, you're really sort of appealing to a big audience. So, they don't come to you, so that they can get 10 people who love Tarkovsky. They come to you so that they can get, if you're doing Super Bowl, I want 50 million people, and you're like, okay, I see I can get 50 million people, or in New Zealand, 2 million people, or maybe 4 if you like. So you have to kind of appeal to that side of yourself, which is, and I always think of my dad. Actually, I think it's good to have someone in your head. You were saying your parents are way too arty to do that, but think of someone how can I make something that I like, but also my dad would like, because he's a bit more mainstream in his tastes. And I think if you can find that part of yourself, then you work better in ads. Because, your job is to deliver a big audience. So, that's one thing.
Tapping into the zeitgeist.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed is sort of just being aware of earnestness. Being too serious with advertising. Because if you're selling someone soap and you're trying to do this big and it's just sort of it just doesn't make sense. It's people can't, it's hard to take you seriously.
Do you mean in the final product or in your process?
I think in both.
In both.
In the final product, and say with that one, that's kind of about the whole kind of people doing, walk and talks to camera and sort of taking the mickey out of that kind of style of advertising. So if you think of it in that way, I could have done it really serious like a Tarkovsky, because that's kind of slightly Tarkovsky inspired in terms of period, but by going, it's a little bit light, it's a little bit fluffy. If you get too serious with things, I think it can fall apart. So sometimes you have to find that part of yourself, and I think that's also understanding genres in advertising. What are dumb ads? What are the ads I really hate on television? How do they work? And then what are good ads? I did another one for Lucasade this year, and it was kind of sports drinks.
And it was kind of like, because you know, sports drinks are always like amazing athletes going, doing this amazing stuff and go at the end. So we were like, oh, how can we take the mickey out of that? And we did, you know, just regular people doing kind of really lame stuff, but awesomely.
Do you have that spot here?
Yeah, I have that. Don't mention it.
Cue.
Look at that. Oh, sorry. One day I'm going to look at it. Yes, and it's sort of like mock earnest. It's sort of meant to sound serious.
The unmistakable feeling of unstoppable, of no problem that can't be solved, of no one else can do it better, that whatever the day throws at you, you simply take it in your stride. You're on top
The gnomes wants to be played. It's like show me.
We've all been that guy falling off the treadmill.
It's a question time throughout or at the end. That's one of the questions.
What's one of your questions?
Whether you can ask a question now.
You can ask a question now.
Was that, how did you cast for both falling off and doing the push-ups? Was that something that you had ideas about and you thought you'd try the day? Or
No, we cast a stunt person, a parkour person. Actually, I ripped that off.
It's alright.
What did you rip it off?
No, it was like I saw it on a YouTube thing. Actually, I think they saw it on a YouTube thing. So we cast for parkour guys, and we actually had people doing it in the casting studio,
Yeah.
which is terrifying, but a good idea, because a lot of people say they can do stuff that they can't. Like I think it was a good idea. So, but then we
Did
had
anybody
like
hurt themselves?
I think they did, but they didn't admit it.
Okay.
Because they were all really tough guys and stuff. But that guy, he was a parkour guy, and he was a really sweet guy, and he did it with his singlet on and stuff like that.
What about Kebab Guy?
Kebab guy is a magician.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, we worked that gig for a while. He was like, I was like, you have to learn to do that faster, man. And he was very keen. I think he does flair and stuff as well, you know, like bottle flair and stuff like that. The same with the haircut guy. He wasn't a haircutter, he just did kind of bottle flair. So we kind of drew on other kind of things. But it was meant to be a bit dumb. It was, yeah.
Something about your work and your body of work is that, you know, I find that incredibly endearing.
Yeah.
I'd be far more inclined to go and buy that.
You shouldn't, it's just sugary water.
Well, in terms of all the clients are clearly throwing major resource at these projects.
Yeah.
But it's done with a light touch. They clearly don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
This thing about being
Earnest.
really earnest.
Yeah.
That can be a real turn-off
Yeah.
for audiences.
Yeah, totally.
But it's really actually quite endearing in the same way that, you know, people who are kind of self-deprecating are kind of endearing. And,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Totally.
a real blowhard, you know, and you that comes across beautifully in all your work, I think.
Yeah, totally.
It's great.
I think that works well. It was interesting, the last shot there where she's in the wind and stuff like that, and that was kind of like, I don't know, I thought it was kind of dumb, but we were doing it on set, and the client's like, stop, I hate it. And I was like, well, we'll just get it, and she's like, I just want to do it with little hair, and I'm like, but it's kind of funny, and then we were doing it again. She's like, no, you're all gonna fire it if you don't stop. I'm like, okay, we'll do it with little hair. And then we cut it into it, and then at the end she's like, I love that shot. I just love it.
Always.
It was really sweet that she actually said it. I was quite impressed, because a lot of people were just like,
And she was actually like, she was kind of like, so you know, that's the thing, you never really know where good ideas are coming from. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's them. Yeah.
Sorry, how many of the situations are already on paper from the agency?
That one.
How many of the cast comedy stuff?
There was a thing about a car, but I think it was like sliding into a park. Oh no, actually there was something about a taxi or something like that, and the thing on the side. The haircut thing wasn't in there. The library thing, they wanted something with just a guy throwing it to rubbish. Actually with that one, you know what they had was they had a guy all the way through it going, and he was saying the kind of stuff. It was just like, flow, and he was going to appear in each of the scenes. So one of my lines in the treatment was, kill the narrator. And they were like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then it was like, it was a little bit harder to convince them, do him like some like guru, you know, Japanese warrior. That was kind of what the direction was for the voiceover, like, flow. You know, like, I was like samurai, you know. I actually used to have a Scottish Japanese teacher, and he could do that, really. You know, he was Scottish, so he had brogue, and he could, he was really into that. I can't remember the words, but he was really good with the, sword is me. You know, like, just getting into his samurai self. So that was what I thought about. Yeah, but I think the idea is, I always try and go, well, what's your big idea here? And then how can we make all these little bits better? You know, like, if that doesn't fit, and sometimes it doesn't fit because of economic reason, or sometimes it's, you know, just impossible to do, or sometimes you just think it will be dumb. But going, well, there's still some sort of idea in here. How can we improve those bits? But I don't know, sometimes, yes, a few of them were in there, but a lot of them would change.
You also have to identify when, like, for example, I've definitely kind of been in a situation where, say, a CD has a script and they just don't want, there's just no way any of it's going to change.
Yeah.
And do you just kind of identify, okay, that's that person, that's the way it's going to have to be?
Depends on the script. Often, yeah, if it's really good, and sometimes they're right, yeah, but the first call is always really interesting for me. Like, and I'm just like, oh, what if we did this? And what if, you know, a bit like, and they're like, if they're just like, no, then I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not your guy.
Right.
And I think that's important as well. Like, if you really just feel like, these are nice guys and stuff, but it's going to be hard for us all to get together and have a vibe. Or if you just feel like, you don't really need me. Or even sometimes I'm like, there's another director who would be better at this. Because they're more into like doing sort of, you know, just pure visual effects, designy things or something like that. Because I'm always like, let's get a story in there, let's make it a little bit funny. Not always, but I tend that way. So if you don't feel that vibe in that initial call, then sometimes you just sort of back out. I always say, my producers are always like, he's got another project bidding and blah blah. So it's like, and it could, you know, it could confirm any day. We're just waiting to hear. So then you can sort of pull out sort of elegantly. It's always managing that. Like, I mean, I get 100, maybe 150, 200 scripts a year or something like that, and I bid on 15. So we pull out a lot of scripts. A lot of them we won't even go to the call with, and then maybe 20 would go to the call, and then every now and then we pull out of one. But if they're pretty high level guys, they're usually pretty good. But sometimes actually more likely is they're like, yeah, and then you get into it, and then they're like, well, we can't really change, and they didn't tell you up front.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of have to be professional and kind of do the job. I actually had a job the year before, the Game of War one, where it was like, I did the first call with the client, and he was so angry at the agency for the whole call. He was like, you guys never listen to me, because I was like, maybe if we did this, and he was like, you guys never listen to me, and I told you I wanted to, and he wanted it to be Game of Duel, you know, he wanted it to be like a Duel commercial for this game thing. I was like, I don't really understand. And he was insulting the agency for this whole 25 minutes, and I was like, he was kind of this like, he'd just got super rich, he was like a billionaire, you know, games developer guy. In the last year he'd made like $1 billion or something like that. So he had just gone from, and apparently he was homeless when he was a teenager, so he was a little bit crazy. But he was yelling at them, and then they were so embarrassed after the call. They were like, We totally understand if Nathan wants to quit the job. They're saying this to my EP, which is so weird. You never hear that. And they were actually wanted me to quit the job to screw over the client.
Did you quit the job?
No, because you still have your professionalism. You know, you don't want to be the guy who quit. You know, what if someone else heard? I'm always like, well, once I'm on, I have to finish the job. You know, what's that? Yeah. If you want to, do you want to see it? This is a bit different. This is Kate Upton. This is celebrities, which is another kind of world as well. I haven't really talked about celebrities. Oh, this isn't on the reel because it's a little bit crazy, but.
The greatest empires take the greatest falls. And even when all seems lost, you must still plan ahead. You will build stronger. You will rise again. Do you want to come and play? Game 4. Play for free now from the App Store.
I think you might have to play the gnome one.
So that was my first Super Bowl spot. See, it's really hard to make good stuff in America. It's a little bit, they do suffer, Americans are famously earnest. But they do some really funny stuff as well. I just haven't quite totally cracked it. But that was interesting, you know, it was just interesting to do sort of big kind of like, you know, Game of Thrones-y type genre piece. And then the celebrity factor as well. Kate's a famous swimsuit model in the US. So, you know, that comes, the interesting thing when you're dealing with a celebrity is basically you've got two clients because they're their own brand and they're bringing their own stuff to the thing and they're trying to protect their image and stuff. And then the client, this particular client just wanted to see more tits. And you know, she was getting paid a lot of money, so there was sort of like emergency meetings with her. I got on really well with her. She was actually one of the coolest celebrities I worked with because she didn't travel with a huge entourage. She just had her two kind of gay dude hairstylist, and they were like fabulous, and everything was amazing. And we would all sort of scheme together, and then we'd come out and try and like. She was like, "I'm not gonna do my hair like that. I'm just gonna put it down, and I hope they don't notice." And then we'd do the shot, and they're like, "That hair needs to be bigger," and you're like, "Okay." It was kind of funny, but you know, and then it was like late night calls to her agent and thing, going, "I don't want to be just like the slutty with big tits," and I was like, and she's like, because she didn't want to do the nude scene and stuff, getting out. That's a double. Yeah, it's good, interesting. She's really, it's amazing though, like, because she's a real goofy person, like you wouldn't recognize her, and then she gets in the pool, and then it's like. It's like a robot turning into kind of like supermodel, just go, you know, she looks amazing like in that close up and stuff like that. She didn't look like that before. She's like, you know, goofy, and then it's just like, she just does something. She's got amazing posture. Just turns it on. You're like, whoa. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And so where to from here with your filmmaking?
Filmmaking, well, I think I'll make more ads. I want to make movies. That's the next big thing. Hopefully, my idea is that hopefully like doing all this popular stuff, you know, doing stuff where you're trying to get a big audience and having that experience with that stuff will help with that. I've been doing a lot of study on writing and I've been working with some writers and stuff now. So that's to try and make the move into that. But I think ads will still be there. I know a lot of guys who still do ads in between projects and stuff. So. But it'd be great to make that transition into. I mean, the interesting thing was features. I mean, television's doing such interesting stuff now as well. You know, that whole genre of long form stuff is just evolving, and so much amazing work there. So, yeah, maybe getting involved with that as well. I think features are more of a director's medium. Television, in my experience, is more of a writer's medium. But I think that's less so now. You know, with like with Carrie Fukuyaga, with True Detective and that kind of stuff. you know, there's lots of stuff with Steven Soderbergh within that. And, you know, directors are having a lot bigger.
You've done a bit of
role.
TV, haven't you?
Yeah, I did 2 shows for Dave Gibson in Wellington, Insider's Guide to Love and The Hot House. And that was really interesting. It's a really different way of shooting. You know, you shoot a lot faster. You know, I think we were shooting like 8 pages a day or 7 pages a day. So I had quite a different sort of, more of a coverage style, where I would do, you know, 1, 2, 3. I'd usually have 1 camera across the line, just to get those scenes. And then you have your set pieces and stuff as well. But it's more, but it's the same stuff. You know, you're still just trying to create that vibe on set. And it just, the hard time is when you're like 6 weeks in and you've been shooting like three simultaneous things, and you're like, and everyone, and usually you're on a night shoot, and then the sound man goes, "Fuck that, you're just pointing the camera everywhere and I can't put my things," and you're like, and then you have to have a talk to the sound man and go, "You're killing the vibe, man." And you're just like, and then, you know, but yeah, it's different. It's more of an endurance thing as well, I think.
Do you want to show your the stadium?
Yeah.
You know the one I'm in, the Coliseum Stadium.
That's kind of a genre thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and do this.
So do you want to talk just a little bit about that?
How do I fix that?
In terms of how many, like how long was the shoot or the pre-production? Because you built the stadium.
Yeah, so that we shot in New Zealand. We shot it down by the airport. We built a quarter of that stadium. Well, maybe a third on sort of roster. Clarice and I, it was Clarice and I's like, maybe it was their second big production for Park, who's our American partners. And it was maybe our 4th big job that we'd done in New Zealand. It was a bit stressful. Like the day after we bid, I think the production designer came in and goes, "I think I need 100 grand more, or 150 grand more," and you're like, so that was a bit scary. And also it was a weird creative energy. The guys were really nice, but there was an ECD back in London who apparently has a cat. I just imagine it that way, and he would send these kind of notes back, you know, some sort of dark lord. He would be like, "I want them to look more samurai," you know, when we were doing the costume design, because the costume design in this was quite a big thing, you know, because they're quite, well, I don't know if you like it, but it's quite a lot of work. And then, but the trouble was, you know, the Samsung, they're Korean. They hate the Japanese. So they were like, we were like going, "But the Koreans hate the Japanese," and they already said that. And he's like, "No, I don't care, I just want it to be more, it needs to be more like fashion and more samurai." And we're like, okay. And then so we did some designs, and then the Koreans were like, "It looks a bit Japanese." And we're like, "No, it doesn't." And, and we're like, "Maybe we'll take that bit off." And they're like, okay. And then somehow we got it sorted through. But the Korean bosses were very kind of like hierarchical in their other way. You know, when I was talking about, you kind of try and operate up and down, and you respect the ones above, and you talk to them, and they sort of trust you. She was like, "No, first shot be this one, and then this other shot be this one," and, you know, and she was just like saying exactly what on the conference call. I was like, "I think we'll start with this on the storyboard," and she was like, "No, I think it'll be this way," and it was like, okay. So she was like you know, so far up the chain, she shouldn't really be making those calls. But that was just the way it worked. And then the shoot was pretty challenging, actually. We had a lot of wind on the day, and it's a big set. There's like 300 extras in the stands and stuff, but the main thing was it was just really windy, and it was knocking over all our stands and stuff, and then the winds were changing, and that was just, it was a hard shoot day, and particularly when you've got a kid, because the kid in that environment, you know, it's like Rama, and this is your first day you work with them. That's the hardest thing, I think, when you're doing production with kids in a big scene like that. It's just getting them to feel like you can have a fun time with them in a rehearsal room, but then it's like the first time he came up on that thing, he was just like, you know, and just like face down and didn't want to like look at anything. It was like, why don't you look around? And you just have to be really playful, and that's where vibe's really important with kids. It's so much more important than anything. You know, if there's any negativity, if anyone's yelling at anyone, or and in fact we did have a problem with him where when we're in the agency, we're getting a bit grouchy in the costume design stage. For some reason, I forget what it was, but they kind of had a go about something, what the producer did when the kid was there. And I'm like, dude, you have to be so careful. I was kind of angry at him. You have to be so careful around the kid, because if you make it seem like this is a bad place to be, you'll just lose that you'll lose that energy. And
so with the woman that was saying, no, you'll do this shot.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that? Like, did you end up having to do the shots in her order, or could you sort of navigate it on the shoot day?
Well, they did a weird thing. There was some question about whether the guys should come out before they had come up or after they had come up. And then they tried to actually change it in the edit, and that's my edit, but they did another edit that was a little bit more kind of tweaky, because they'd actually changed the order of the thing, which wasn't what we'd agreed. But they did sometimes, and I found this mainly more with American clients, is sometimes they really just try and go back to the board, particularly if they get in the edit suite by themselves, which in America you tend to have less control over the edit. There's an editor who comes in who becomes the director of the edit, and sometimes you're allowed to give a director's edit, but often not. And so there can be a tendency for them to sort of start resorting back to what the original kind of board was. So there's a little bit of that on that, but it was an editor I hadn't worked with, but I've now worked with a lot. But it was okay. Yeah.
So just a slightly different version going in the edit?
Yeah. Not too different. Just, I think it's a little different with the order at the start, and it's a little bit more kind of, there's less of a sense of a narrative. It's a bit more choppy, you know. Because I was just felt it was quite important. I don't think it was totally effective in terms of you empathizing with those guys. Maybe I should have been a little tighter, but it worked pretty well. I mean, the thing with that kind of thing is it's for an international audience, so you can't be quite as sort of meta, you know, like I could with that, you know, that stuff I did for London. It can be very sharp and meta and kind of strange, whereas if you're playing for an international audience, it is more in that blockbuster style, I find. So you do have to kind of, where you're just doing to your country, you have to find the pop song in yourself. I don't know, when you're doing for that kind of thing, you have to kind of find the Britney Spears in yourself. You have to find the uber pop, the Bieber in you. In some way, you know, you just have to find a way to emulate Hollywood a little bit in a way that speaks to those, you know, like China and Korea, and because they use that really globally.
Are the boy and the dad from New Zealand? Or
The guy is actually from London.
Okay.
We tried to find someone here, but they didn't quite go with our selection, so we ended up flying someone out.
So how does your kind of casting process work? Like how much involvement? Does the client get the final say, or?
Oh yeah, we always pitch that. We always pitch them to client. So basically it will go, the casting director will see a bunch of people, I'll see the selects, then I'll do a session with them. If they're in London, I'll do it on Skype, and then, but usually I'd go to the thing and meet them, and we'll do a 15-minute session working together. Depending on the role, sometimes it might be longer, sometimes it might be shorter. And then once I've made a select of people, I'll present that to the agency and the client. And sometimes the agency, the Americans, they tend to go to that session where we do the time with them, so that's a little different as well.
So I think maybe one or two last questions.
I'm I've been asking about music.
Yeah.
All those commercials have got terrific soundtrack. Original? Or Samsung?
Samsung, that's from a movie. What movie is it from?
Well, it's Maniac it sounded like, but...
Yeah, no, it is from some old Sword and Sandal thing, I think.
Dragons.
Pro Arts or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. No, I have to listen to it again. Actually, I've forgotten. We did initially. I had like a Justice song on it. You know, it is more like. I thought that was pretty cool, but they weren't into that. No, actually, Justice weren't into it. Justice were like, no, screw you. so that wasn't so good.
Lucky last?
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky last.
Oh, there's two of you, so there'll be lucky two. Two last.
Looking back at your career, maybe before you had 250 scripts coming at you per year, how important do you think it is to have a very clear idea of your positioning as a director, your unique selling points? How are you different from anyone else?
Yeah, I think that is important. Well, it's always just trying to find an edge in the industry. I mean, I think there's a few things in terms of coming up. Well, for me, Kezia, it was different for. We had a chat about this the other day. But I started with a $20,000 budget, and I had to work my way up to whatever. I was lucky that I had a visual effects background, so I sort of got up to kind of a couple of $100, $400 budgets relatively quickly. Because people will go, oh, we need someone cheap, but we need someone who's cheaper who's done lots of visual effects. I'm like, that was where I had a slight edge. But I think, yeah, you do have to find your own voice. You have to just try and make every script sing in some way. I think there's two things. One is about relationships. So if you make them look good, and you do that by making great work, but also you do it by, because I know there are other guys who have come up really quickly and then crash really quickly because I've burnt so many bridges and they've just did what they wanted to do as they came up and they burn out really quickly. So you can't be so definitive with your voice that you're not willing to listen to anyone. But then I heard a story about Nick Ball the other day. He did one for that New World one, with the guy who's floating through the thing. And that was totally different than the agency thought they were getting. And I think he kind of burnt the bridge there, but he was kind of shooting theirs at the same time, and he had another agenda. It's the one where the guy floats through the supermarket. Yeah, Dreamweaver. It's really good. But he took the strategy of going, okay, well, I know what they want. I don't even know if he took that strategy. It's just he has a very specific voice, and they didn't quite, and he maybe didn't explain to them exactly. I always like to explain to people what they're going to get on set so that we're not having those freaky arguments on set, because that kind of eat up a bit of time. But I think you just have to find that way to get your, to have a voice. And I think that's just being true to who you are and your own instincts and stuff. And if you can find a way, if you can find those things, originality is really important. Just trying to always put a spin on ideas, squeeze out cliches, go, that's like that crap, that's like that thing. Even if it's really good, just go, I have to put a twist on it, I have to make it better, I have to...
Right in there with the creatives, because the creatives gives you something, you fight back and say, this is cliche.
Yeah, you don't, it's not fight back, but you go, no, I don't know. I'm always like, it smells, I don't know. That's like, and they'll go, yeah, and then you go, what about this? And keep pitching each other ideas and try and get everyone in. Talk to your crew and go, oh, they've got this bit, it doesn't quite work, blah, blah, blah. You always have to be very critical about your work and about how it's going and stuff. But I think, you have to find a way to your voice and then find a way to make the budgets you're making look like bigger budgets. Because you have to move from the $20,000, you have to make your $20,000 script look like a $40,000 one, or it has to get some awards or something, So look for those opportunities.
And the last question to you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you elaborate just a little bit on how you work when you go into post?
Yeah.
Because you came from post, so how does that affect how you go into an edit?
I'm a bit of a pain in the ass. I came from not so much the editing side, I came from the visual effects side. So in an edit, I tend to be... it's the same with all my crew. I like to go, well, you give me your version. Sometimes I won't come in and do selects first. I'll just let them sort of come up with a cut and then we'll do selects afterwards. Sometimes I do selects and go, okay, well, you do a cut and let's see where it goes. And then often they'll come up with something interesting that I hadn't thought of. But then often I'll work it up and we'll try and get it to what I thought it would be, and then some bits from what they had created actually work better, and then the few days after that it sort of begins to evolve and stuff as well. But on the visual effects side of things, I think it's just I've got a good knowledge of that stuff and making sure. I think a lot of great post actually happens in prep. You know, it's about going, okay, well, I need the designs of this stuff happening. I need to know how it fits, and it's all about integration and trying to make a shot look believable. So I guess I've just got that background, so that's a useful thing. But sometimes I can be a bit picky. I feel sorry for the flame artist sometimes, because I'm like, I can see that matte line. I can see that matte line. I wasn't even that good, but I can see the bad stuff. I'm actually and I do a lot of stuff in camera where I can. And I think there's a real tendency towards that. You know, if you look at people like J.J. Abrams, and there's a tendency to try and do more and more stuff. And because, I didn't put Humpty on here, but if you go on my website, there's Humpty, and he's like a prosthetic character with these amazing prosthetics, but you really couldn't do the close-ups like that we could have if we didn't have digital cleanup, because it's just so fine to work. And it was that ability to use a digital technique on top of a kind of an old school technique that actually made it into this amazing new thing. So I think that knowing your old school techniques is a really important way, to make good effects. That's my philosophy on it. So I'm kind of anti-effects, having been in effects.
And I think that's a perfect place to stop the talk. Thank you very much, Nathan.
Do you want to see Sky or anything?
Yeah.
Should we
see one more?
Yeah.
No.
This is one they did. No. Oh.
If you're a thinker, a seeker, a believer, come. If you're a lover, a cheater, a traitor, or a troublemaker. If you're done, leader. A confession or a one-time elbow leader. A bruiser, a winger, a time-bringer. If you're a do-gooder, a cage crusader. Gravity-bound impersonator. Yourselves, that's a problem with the street cleaner. If you're a moth to the flickering light, come along for the night. We have just the thing.
Do you have state as well?
I'll just let you watch it. This I did like maybe 10, 15 years ago.
It all starts with me.
Yeah, that's kind of a little...
It really wanted to play, didn't it?
I don't even know how to...
Your energy drinks, boy.
That was, you can see how you're kind of like, your style moves on and stuff when you look at yours.
How did you ask for a teenager who can do, how did you...
With that kid?
Yeah.
We cast around all the, because they have competitions for it, champions and stuff like that. So it's like, that kid could actually do that. He's a super wizard.
Where was this made?
That was in London. We shot that in London. Yeah. What was that?
The machine now. Just a quick go at the machine, please.
The which one?
The guy freaking himself. His ass off the machine.
Falling off. All right.
Of no one else.
He's really funny.
Do it
I love the
better.
wind machine.
That's great.
Whatever the day throws at you, you simply take it in your stride.
Wow.
She's quite good as well.
Find your rhythm.
I like his facial. No, that's for real. That's post. But that was we just did like it was standing on a stand, and then she like you just throw it towards where the stand is. It's two separate posts. Oh.
But the car on the tilt is actually driven. Like,
Yeah.
Wow. And she's up on it.
Yeah. Stunt.
How's that legal?
It's a
Stunt woman?
It's a stunt. Yeah, but basically.
I know it's a stunt.
It's a closed piece of road. So basically, yeah, stunts are really interesting. You can kind of, yeah. So basically, you pay people with stunt adjustments because there's a level of risk involved. But you do a lot of work. You build up, and they do it a lot of times. And then they climb out of the car a little bit, and we just have to figure out ways that are kind of safe enough. And so she's not attached to it or anything, so if she fell, she could fall clear and stuff.
Yeah, it's not going as fast as you might think it's going.
It's going about, no, because you can only really do that at a certain speed. It's only like about 30 Ks or something like that. You can't do it at 50 because it gets wibbles. There's kind of a limit to what. Yeah, so it's not an accurate speed.
Slow motion away.
Yeah, that's right. We did hide it a bit in slow motion. Yeah. So it looks like slow motion, but. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Nathan.
Hey guys.